Bergen Community College presents Bergen Bulldog Radio on FiOS Channel 26. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Bergen Community College.
Welcome to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on the YouTube Bergen Bulldog Radio channel and on Torch TV FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. The Bergen Bulldog podcast show is a weekly compilation produced by the students of the podcasting class on the Paramus campus of Bergen Community College. Each week, we'll feature several podcasts created and produced by Bergen Bulldog Radio students. The topics vary, and we hope you will find them informative and entertaining. This week's program features 5 of the first episodes. These 15-minute programs are all original introductory creations for the spring 2026 semester here at BCC. So let's get on with the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the official, yes, that's right, official inaugural episode of the JPG project. The previous one was our pilot. I am your host, Joshua Gallatin. Tonight, I'll be dissecting the 2025 NFL season, Super Bowl 60. Oh, and yes, today is currently the first day of the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine down in Indianapolis, where the select draft prospects descend on Lucas Oil Stadium to showcase their talents going into the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. I will give you some prospects to keep an eye out for and how one can raise their stock. But first tonight, the 2025 NFL season was a wild one, and I mean a wild one. Very few teams from the 2024-25 playoffs made it back this year, and some division thrones were upended. The Denver Broncos upended the Kansas City Chiefs' 9-year AFC West title stint. Patrick Mahomes missed the playoffs for the first time since being drafted in 2017. And even in his rookie year, didn't have much playing time due to Alex Smith starting and still got to the playoffs that year. Mahomes would also tear his ACL in the final drive versus the division rival in the Los Angeles Chargers during the Week 15 home game, and it would end up being the game knocking the Chiefs out of the playoffs for the first time since 2014. Although the Broncos would lose in the AFC Championship game despite having the 1 seed due to Bo Nix breaking his ankle in the divisional round. Their opponent? Yes, that's right. The New England Patriots, who won the AFC East for the first time since 2019, ending the Buffalo Bills' 5-year reign. I don't know which Jets fans hate more. The Bills being in control for so long or the mere possibility that the Patriots might be here to stay after getting back to the Super Bowl, even without Tom Brady. Drake May was also the runner-up for Most Valuable Player award at NFL Honors. And the Chicago Bears not only won their first division title for the first title since 2018, but unlike that season where they missed a chip shot in Philadelphia against the Philadelphia Eagles, they won their first playoff game in 15 years. The previous time they won their division, defeating the Green Bay Packers and fulfilling Ben Johnson's wish to be Packers head coach Matt LaFleur twice a year. They would fall short, however, to the Los Angeles Rams, who in the wild card round survived a showdown with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Despite an 8-9 record, circumstances worked out for the Panthers to win their first NFC South title in 10 years, upending the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' 4-year run as NFC South champs. Matthew Stafford would end up winning his first MVP award despite losing to the eventual new Super Bowl champions in Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is now 2-4 in the Super Bowl, but most notably, they are 4-4 making it there when they have both the division and the conference seed. As someone who looked back on the Jets' decision to move on from Sam Darnold following the 2020 season, I'm just going to say I'm happy for the kid. 202 yards, 19 to 38 completions, and 1 passing touchdown in the Super Bowl. But the biggest stat in the playoffs people are missing, 0 turnovers throughout the entire postseason run. None. after leading in that category in the regular season with 20, 14 interceptions, and 6 lost fumbles, and all while battling an oblique injury throughout the playoffs, which was first reported right before the divisional game against the Niners. He is the first quarterback from the 2018 class and also from University of Southern California in general to win a Super Bowl. We should have never let him go, in my opinion. And former Jets general manager Mike McCannon echoed similar comments before the Super Bowl, and he acknowledged that he was gone by then, with Joe Douglas had taken over, so he wasn't making the decisions. I'm also happy for a specific player and old friend of mine, Cody White, who, although didn't play in the postseason due to a groin injury, contributed to the season when it mattered. You are this man. 3 receptions for 90 yards, but you recorded your first official touchdown in the NFL against Washington on Sunday Night Football for everyone to see on a Super Bowl winning team. Congrats, man. Keep on shining. Sorry if I'm getting emotional, all of you. I'm just happy for an old friend of mine. I also got to acknowledge that Seattle defense is going to be fighting for years to come. How about that big man fumble recovery by Uchenna Nwasu during the Super Bowl? The dark side is legit. We also have one of the largest coaching carousels in years with 10 openings. With the Tennessee Titans, New York Giants opening their vacancies mid-season, the Atlanta Falcons, Arizona Cardinals, Las Vegas Raiders, Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens, Miami Dolphins all opening up after the regular season ended, and Mike Tomlin surprisingly stepped down from the Pittsburgh Steelers job after losing to the Houston Texans in the wild card round. And then the Buffalo Bills opened their head coaching vacancy after losing to the Broncos in a divisional round overtime loss after firing Sean McDermott. John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski may remain active as NFL head coaches, going from Baltimore and Cleveland to the Giants and Atlanta, respectively. Mike McCarthy returns to the coaching in Pittsburgh after taking the year off succeeding Mike Tomlin. Robert Saleh gets a second stint as a head coach in Tennessee after a year back with the 49ers. First-time head coaches include Todd Monken in Cleveland, Jesse Minter in Baltimore, Clint Kubiak in Las Vegas, Mike LaFleur in Arizona, Joe Brady in Buffalo, and Jeff Hafley in Miami, although he was the head coach at Boston College before becoming the defensive coordinator in Green Bay, which was his previous stop. Now, Super Bowl 60 may be behind us, but as I am recording to you all, down in Indianapolis, the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine is off and running. The schedule each year works as follows. The first day, which is usually the last Thursday of February and is wrapping up shortly at the time of this recording, showcases the defensive linemen, so defensive tackles, defensive ends, and linebackers, which was what today's showcase was. So players like linebacker Aiden Fisher from Indiana or defensive end Dean Tucker from Western Michigan are working out today. I don't understand why someone like linebacker Arvell Reese from Ohio State would work out today on top of his pro day. He's already a likely high draft pick. Tomorrow, you'll get the defensive backs, cornerbacks, and safeties, and then the tight ends. So players like tight end Marvin Klein from Michigan, or cornerback D'Angelo Pons from Indiana, or safety Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. Saturday is considered the main course where the running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers will work out. The first 2 days are likely the appetizers and salad or soup, with the third day being all-you-can-eat buffet. So think quarterback Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, wide receiver Elijah Surratt from Indiana, and running back Jaden Ott from Oklahoma. Now, Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza will almost certainly not be working out the combine since he's the presumptive number 1 overall pick, so the workout will come at the pro day. And then on the final day, we'll showcase offensive linemen, centers, guards, and tackles, such as Pat Coogan, Spencer Fano, and although the latter might choose to wait till his pro day to the high draft projections. Kickers and punters are usually done off to the side on the first day of the combine, like kicker Dominic Savada or Michigan Brett Thornton of Georgia. Now, I should note, beyond Fernando Mendoza, the players who are in the draft class representing Indiana are not expected to be day 1 picks. They might get picked in the second or third round. Tends to happen sometimes on the national championship winning teams. It happened to Ohio State when defensive end Jack Sawyer and quarterback Will Howard then get drafted to the 4th and 6th rounds respectively to Pittsburgh. And most of the 2023 championship Michigan team, aside from J.J. McCarthy, were second or third rounders in 2024 NFL draft. So how does lesser known talent jump from into the first round, you may ask? Impressing scouts so they might be willing to take a chance on them and chance on someone. Whether it's the meter dash, the high jump, or just showing off good athleticism. Bo Nix wasn't originally projected to be a first round pick until his performance at the 2024 Senior Bowl, and then his performance at the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine. And then Denver selected him as the 12th overall pick in 2024. And look at wide receiver Xavier Worthy. He holds the red title, the fastest dash combined in combine history. And then the Chiefs drafted him with the 28th overall pick, so in the same draft class as Knicks. The last example I'll give you is Jackson Dart, a familiar face to all New Yorkers, who last year was in projected to be a first-round draft pick at first. But like Bo Nix, impressed scouts at the 2025 Senior Bowl, so that the Giants were willing to trade back into the first round to take a chance on him, hopefully to be their quarterback for years to come. But your draft stock can also fail. Shedeur Sanders was projected to be a first-round pick last year and fell all the way to the fifth round when the Browns ultimately took him. So what does this all mean? Stock can rise, but also fall at the same time. Whether it's performance, personality, and most of all, leadership traits. We will see how the next few days unfold going into free agency and then the draft in Pittsburgh on April 23rd through April 25th. I have seen people say that this quarterback class has gotten weaker since people like Dante Moore from Oregon and Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss are saying Trinidad Chambliss was granted another year of eligibility by the courts, albeit the NCAA's wishes. And Dante Moore is saying with another year of eligibility on him. I hate to say it, I agree. Beyond Mendoza, who's QB2 in this draft? Miami's Carson Beck and Vanderbilt's Diego Pavia are terrible sports. Garrett Nussmeier and Mark Kornowski are the only ones I can think of really be both character-wise and physically. I mean, besides Ty Simpson from Alabama, honestly. Drew Aller from Penn State is coming off a gruesome broken left ankle injury. He's also projected to be a first-round pick going into the 2025 season beforehand. Not so much now. Ethan Kalimakis from Rutgers has done well versus lower competition, but not against the big guys. So I don't see many options. Maybe Cade Klubnik from Clemson. Dabo Sweeney develops really good talent like Jacksonville's Trevor Lawrence, so we shall see. In any event, that's all the time we have for today. A quick, friendly reminder. In our next episode, we're going one-on-one with someone close to me on the ground at Indiana University. I will ask them on the Hoosiers 2025 championship run, their thoughts on going into the 2026 season with Texas Christian University or TCU transfer quarterback Josh Hoover under center, succeeding Fernando Mendoza while looking to repeat. I also sneak in a few questions on thoughts on how about the now NFL-bound Hoosiers and a single-season record 9 Hoosiers invited to the Combine. I think there could have been a few more invited than that. So stay tuned for that. Depending on where you are listening from, either stay warm or enjoy the beautiful sunshine that is in your region. Spring is right around the corner. Let's freaking go. Have a great night, everyone. Until next time, I'm Joshua Gallatin, signing off.
Hi, welcome to the first episode of Nick's Pit Stop, where I'll be going over the current season of RuPaul's Drag Race, season 18. And today I'll be reviewing episode 8, which is the episode with Snatch Game, which is one of the most infamous challenges in Drag Race. So I just want to preface this by saying I'm not a drag queen and I do not do drag, but my opinions are all the correct ones. So the episode starts off with all the girls coming back after Vita's elimination, and they all are really sad and down, and Jane Don't said that this was like the saddest day of filming, which I just I'm confused about because I feel like Vita was not really a big personality. But regardless, if you don't know, Snatch Game is a parody of the old reality show Match Game, or Celebrity Match Game specifically. And the goal for the drag queens is to impersonate a celebrity and make RuPaul laugh. Those are like the two things that they have to do. The actual substance of the challenge really does not matter as long as they're making RuPaul laugh and as long as they're impersonating a celebrity. And before this even starts, I just want to, like, everybody knows Snatch Game is going to happen, and Snatch Game is like the biggest challenge of the season. Like, it's like the one that the queens are always worried about, and they always say they have to prepare for. So everyone knows it's coming. I just want to say that in the beginning because you might think that some people didn't expect it. So before even going into the challenge, my like guesses on who would be the front runners are Jane Don't and Nini Coco, because they're just like, not only are they like my favorites of the season, but they're really performing. Like, they're really turning it out every episode. Jane has never been in the bottom. Or she's not never been in the bottom. She's never not been in the top, which is like crazy. We're like 8 episodes in and she hasn't not been in the top. And Nini Coco just does great every episode, and I love her, and I think she's gonna do good because she's funny and creative, and yeah. So the Snatch Game was split into 2 groups. I'm gonna go over each group and each of the girls in that group, how they did, what happened in the Snatch Game, and then I'm also gonna talk about their runways. And I just also want to say the runway theme is 80s ladies, and I am 20 and was born in 2005 and do not know most of the people that they impersonated for Snatch Game and who they dressed up as for the runway. So take my opinions with a grain of salt. First, we have Jane Don't, who is impersonating Truman Capote. I have no idea who that is. But I thought she was really funny. And I think something that's important with Snatch Game is, even if I don't know who your character is, if you're funny and you're making me laugh, that's all that matters. Like, I've never heard of Truman Capote, but when Jane Don't walked in and went, RuPaul's here, and she looks her age, I was like, okay, she's going to do great. Like, not only did I expect Jane Don't to do a good job, but she did. And all of her jokes were funny. She had this like running gag that she was writing her second, or he, I guess, was writing his second book. And I think that was smart because it gives Jane something to go back to, which is something in Snatch Game that you might need, because we'll get to some of the girls do not know what they're doing. And for Jane's runway, she was Kate Pearson of the B-52s. I do know the B-52s. I do not know Kate Pearson. But fun fact, RuPaul is in the music video for Love Shack by the B-52s. I think Jane looks really cute. I like her little beehive, and her dress and her tights are very cute. I'm not going to have a lot of opinion on if they look like the person they're impersonating for the runway, but I thought she looks good. And with the runway, the impersonation is not as important because it's not the challenge. But anyway, next up in this group is Mia Starr. So Mia Starr was first going to be Big Ange, who I honestly don't know who that is, but I do know that she's been done on the Snatch Game before. And when RuPaul comes into the workroom and they're like, oh, I'm going to do Big Ange, and RuPaul's like, is that going to be funny? That's like a switcher character. Like, that's a no matter what, unless you're really, really confident, unless you're like Gigi Good on season 12, like, you got to switch your character. So Mia Starr somehow ends up on Bloody Mary, which is the first of many made-up characters, and that's something I really don't like with Snatch Game, is when the queens pick either like a made-up character, or they like pick a character that exists and then they just give them their own personality. And I think sometimes it's funny, but most of the time it's like lazy because you're not impersonating somebody. And it usually is a backup character, and that's what Mia ended up doing. So she was Bloody Mary, which was her backup, I guess, for some reason. I don't know why Bloody Mary would be the person you would choose, because I guess she thought she was going to make it funny, and she was wrong. She bombed so bad. It was so embarrassing. I cannot imagine being Mia and doing that bad in Snatch Game. Even though she's like a dancer, and there's like the dancers don't do good on Snatch Game, like running thing, but I don't know. I actually wrote in my notes 3 separate times that Mia made me cringe, and that's how you know it was bad. And also, Athena, her drag sister, said, "Sister, forgive me, but thank you for bombing so bad." Which, like, and Athena, after this whole alliance thing, this whole season with her and Juicy and Mia, like, that's crazy. And even after Snatch Game, Mikey Meeks said, "If I say your name 3 times, will a joke appear?" That completely encapsulates her whole thing, and that was the funniest joke that related to Mia the entire episode. Mia did not say anything funnier than that. And for her runway, she was Prince, and I think it was not great. I don't love the fabric texture. I don't love the guitar with her face on it. She looks fine, but I think if you know you're going to do bad in the Snatch Game, you really have to like pick a good runway. Next, I'm going to be talking about Nini Coco. So Nini Coco was Sir David Attenborough, and I sure you don't know who that is, and I didn't know who that was, but all you have to know is that he's the guy that voices nature documentaries, and I just think that's such a good idea. Like, not only am I gonna glaze Nini Coco, but that is just such a good idea because there's so much to go off of. Like, there's so many jokes that can come out of that. And like Jane, I didn't know who she was, but I still laughed at everything she said. But her makeup, she was supposed to look like an old man, and she successfully did that, and it was literally terrifying. Um, but she did amazing. I think Nini was definitely my favorite out of the entire Snatch Game, out of both teams. Um, and you're gonna see why in a little bit. But overall, great performance, really funny. Her runway, she was Cyndi Lauper, which is she is girls just want to have fun. That's all I know. It was cute. She's very like punky kinda. And I just want to comment that so Nini Coco does this thing where she has one eyelash that's longer than the others, and that's like a lot of drag queens have like their thing. Like Anitra from season 15 has her little line in her eye. And for her Cyndi Lauper, she didn't do that. And I think that's very important because when queens like Nini Coco, or for a bigger example like Crystal Method, have from season 12 have like a very distinct makeup style, I think when they're impersonating someone, they should not do that style. And that ends up being the downfall of a lot of queens. So I just want to comment that she like did not do that, and I think that shows her smarts. Like, she knows what she's doing. Next, we have Darlene Mitchell as Mrs. Claus. I don't have much to say about her. Another made up character, whatever. I guess there's something to be done with Mrs. Claus, but I don't know. She was very dry performance. There was nothing very memorable. Um, I actually wrote some of her jokes were funny, but not funny enough to be memorable. So that's literally all I have to say about her. And for her runway, she was Dolly Parton, which cute. Like, Dolly Parton's a very famous person in the queer space. She's been done before on Drag Race multiple times. They've done challenges based on Dolly Parton. And she looks like Dolly Parton, but I do think Trixie Mattel did it better in All Stars 3. But she looks fine. Next up, oh my gosh, Athena Dion. So Athena Dion was going to do Charlie Chaplin, and RuPaul came in and was like, how can you make that funny? And I think that's funny. I think Charlie Chaplin could be done really well, and that's a really creative choice. But then RuPaul was like, you should do someone Greek. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired of Athena doing Greek people. I get it if that's your culture, but that's all she does, is that she's Greek, and that's like her only personality trait. And so she ended up being Greta Feta Onassis, who is literally just a Greek woman. That's not only are you not impersonating a character, but she also was not that funny. None of her jokes were great. It was just a lot of Greek stereotypes, and I don't like, why do we want to make people laugh at your culture? Why are we pushing stereotypes? I don't know. In the Big 26, what are we doing? But actually, Athena being this completely made up character is starting some discourse in the Drag Race like zeitgeist, where Aquaria, previous winner of Drag Race, called her out and was like, what are we doing? Like, you're not even impersonating someone. For her runway, she was Joan Collins. I have heard of Joan Collins. I don't really know who that is. But she looks good. I think the dress is one of the best things she's ever worn. I don't love her makeup. Moving on. Snatch Game Group 2. I'm starting off with Mikey Meeks as Drew Barrymore. I, again, don't know much about Drew Barrymore. All I know about her is that Willow Pill did her on season 11, and she was bad. But I thought Mikey did good. Everyone was laughing at her, so it must have been a good impression. Again, I don't know much about Drew Barrymore, so I don't have much to say, but I thought she was funny. She was definitely entertaining, and she made RuPaul laugh. Again, that's the goal. For her runway, she was Olivia Newton-John, who I do know because I watched Grease for the first time this week, and Olivia Newton-John is in Grease. And does she look like Olivia Newton-John? Not like she looked in Grease, but I think she looks good. I like this pink bodysuit thing. I know Michelle hated those shoes. Michelle Visage hated those shoes because they're purple. And I also agree. I know it's like a reference, but like, come on. They looked ugly. Juicy Love Dion was Juicy Love Dion did not know who she was going to do for a Snatch Game. She was like, oh, like, I don't know what to do. And it makes sense because she's like one of the dancer performer queens. She's not known for being funny. She ended up doing JoJo Siwa, and I think she sounded and looked a lot like JoJo Siwa, but she wasn't really funny at all. So like, I have the unpopular opinion that she did pretty good, but did she make RuPaul laugh? No. Is that one of the goals? Yes. So she didn't do great. Her runway, she was Celia Cruz. I don't know who that is, but she looked great. She finally has a big wig on. She's been getting a lot of flack this season for not wearing real hair, like a wig. She's always wearing these headpieces. And I like her big wig that she has, and her blue dress is actually beautiful. So Discord Adams is the Pope, or she's a version of the Pope. She's not a specific Pope. And I thought she did a great job. I really did think she was going to win the challenge. They were editing the episode like she was going to win, and she was very funny. Her face was literally terrifying to look at, but that one joke where she was like, recently I've been falling asleep at the confessionals because everyone's sins nowadays are boring. I thought that was very funny. She was Reba on the runway. I do know Reba. I think she looks great. She looks different, and I like that. She did her, she's usually very punk emo, and she did like a very normal looking mug, and I like that. Last in this group, we have Kenya Pleaser, who was Lizzo. And she was hyping herself up this whole episode that she was going to do a great job because she's a Lizzo impersonator. And she really, really flopped. And it was really embarrassing to watch, especially saying that you're a Lizzo impersonator. She pulled out a flute. She didn't know how to play the flute. Are you serious? You're a Lizzo impersonator. Learn how to play something on the flute. Like, then why bring it? All of her jokes were cringe. It was very similar to Mia. It is amazing that they're not in the same group because that would have been the worst group. And for her runway, she was Shaka Khan. And actually, Kenya Pleaser is the only one who didn't post a picture of her outfit because it was so bad. She was wearing just like a slip dress and a wig. And she looked horrible. Which, same thing with Mia. If you know you're going to do bad in the Snatch Game, why are you wearing an ugly outfit? On to the critiques from the judges. So in the top, we have Jane Don't, which I just want to say Jane Don't has never not been in the top. 8 episodes straight in the top or a win. Nene Coco and Mikey Meeks. I think this is fully deserved. With Nene getting the win this episode, she was absolutely hilarious. This makes me want to watch nature documentaries because Nene did such a good job. In the bottom, we have Mia Star, Kenya Pleaser, and Juicy Love Dion. They give Juicy that critique where they're like, you have no personality, and I hate that critique because that's just mean. Like, you can't, and also Juicy's been doing good this season, so why are you going to be like, Juicy, who are you? Like, what? Juicy ends up being safe, along with Athena and Discord, which is crazy because Athena made up a character and Discord was amazing. Discord totally should have been on the top. She honestly should have won the episode. And Darlene was also safe. Again, Darlene did not do much. So the lip sync for your life was against Kenya and Mia to Head Over Heels by the Go-Go's. I actually wrote down, we all know where this is going because Mia is a professional dancer. She's danced with so many celebrities. I think she danced with like Beyonce and a bunch of other people. I don't have her resume on hand, but she really just didn't do anything. She kind of just walked back and forth and sang, and Kenya sold it. I'm really surprised that Kenya ended up sending her home. I actually wrote the Dion dynasty has fallen because finally one of the Dion girls are out. And Mia, like Athena, was underperforming in the season. And I think Kenya deserved that win. I was very worried that in this episode, because Kenya's been in the bottom for, a few episodes at this point, and she's lip synced a few times, and she's not been doing amazing in the overall season. And I'm just very happy that she got her grace and got to be safe and win this lip sync against this professional dancer. So overall, I like the Snatch Game. There's a lot of talks recently about how the Snatch Game is overdone and they need to get rid of it because everyone sucks. And to be fair, most of them were not great, but then you get stuff like Jane Don't, Truman Capote, and I honestly thought Mikey's Drew Barrymore was great. I thought, again, Nene did amazing. I now want to, she made me want to go, watch a nature documentary because her Sir David Attenborough was so funny and I want to understand these references. But I think that for Snatch Game, we should just ban made-up characters. I think Discord did a good job as the Pope, but everyone else should be banned. No more made-up characters. Can we please impersonate a celebrity or get rid of the challenge? That is literally the whole point. Anyway, that's all I have for today on this episode of Nick's Pit Stop, where we reviewed the Snatch Game. Thank you for listening.
I'm Aiden Moreno, and you're listening to Openly Mindful, the only show with no experts, no agenda, just good old-fashioned one-on-one discussions. Join me as I interview guests and try to understand their perspectives just a little bit better. Today, let's learn more about AI.
Everybody's talking at me. I don't hear a word they're saying, only the echoes of my mind.
Today I'm here with Matthew Garrido, an engineer and tech enthusiast. Matthew also happens to be my older brother. I figured my first episode should start close to home. So welcome, Matthew. Please, can you give me a little background on yourself, your career?
Yeah. Thank you, Aiden. First of all, I'm excited to be here and talk about anything tech and science and engineering related. I have a background in mechanical engineering, undergrad degree from NJIT, so we're repping New Jersey
Whoop,
here.
whoop. New Jersey.
So yeah, I currently work as an energy engineer for a company called Enfra. We focus on renewables, technology, and just improving energy efficiency for buildings, large-scale projects. So, and we're starting to use AI. So, I'm excited to talk about that a little bit here today.
All right. Let's elaborate on that. So, how do you use AI at your workplace, and how do you use it personally as well?
So, yeah, before my current job, I actually never had to sign a AI usage policy waiver. So I'm sure that that's now a common practice for most jobs nowadays. In terms of how I use it on a day-to-day basis at work, it's really just to quickly summarize articles and information that I need for my day-to-day actions and working with my workflow. It's never anything crazy. It's nothing really that cool. We just use it as a really easy way to automate boring tasks. On a personal level, I rarely use AI. At the most, it's like when I'm Googling something.
Yeah.
It's like I'll get that AI summary thing.
Oh
and
my
it's
God,
like,
I
okay,
hate
I didn't
that.
ask for that, for sure.
No, I hate that. That every app now is incorporating this
Mm-hmm.
AI. It's being forced down our throats, and not in the most useless apps as well. Like I know Instagram has a feature.
Don't even get me started on the Instagram people. You're just searching someone's thing or a trend, and it's explains everything. It's like I'm not reading
It's
all
always.
that.
I feel like it's always inaccurate as well.
It's yeah, and it's they do it for the weirdest things. I'm on a small creators page, and they'll have a summarized thing, or even when group chats, you
Yeah.
send something, it's summarize the last 5 messages in the group chat. It's
And it's just
okay.
5 reels on
It's
a meme and stuff.
Didn't need that.
But so personally, you try to use it liberally. You don't want to use it too much because I'm sure you're aware of the environmental impact. Can you tell me what you know about that?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and it touches on 3 main factors, or at least 3 that I'm concerned with the most right now. It's power usage, water usage, and then potential harm and effects on the human body. So let's quickly just touch base with each one real quick.
Yeah,
The first 2, power and water.
that's what I hear about
all the
most.
time. Yeah, that's what's
It's like
big
a
on the
gallons
news.
of water. It's
It's this took 8 gallons of water to
whole
make an
ocean.
image.
yeah.
And that's not far off from the truth. Considering some of the places that the AIs are kind of stored, or the data is stored, which for those of you who are listening don't know, that's in data centers. That's also another big buzzword you hear on news and articles and stuff like that, because that's where AI is, physically, right? We see it on our phones, and on the internet, but it's through data centers that we see
Like the
that.
cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
AI.
We still need a physical place or anything related to the internet. So, yeah, these data centers use a lot of power and use a lot of water. In the surrounding communities, that could be a very, very bad thing. So, and then we could touch upon the physical aspects of it, that there's a concerning growing amount of research that suggests that the sound, specifically the infrasound generated by data centers, could cause impactful effects on the cardiovascular system, on the
Whoa.
heart, the eyes.
That's the first time I'm hearing that.
Yeah, no, it's
infra what?
Infrasound. So
Infrasound.
it's a type of sound that, without getting into the science-y jargon of it all,
Sure.
it's something that you just can't hear.
Yeah.
Right? It's a frequency that is below the capabilities and the range of the human hearing, yet it still has effects on your cells and your body and its functions. So there's evidence to suggest that we should kind of slow down,
Yeah.
not just because of just power and water usage, but also because it might affect the people in the surrounding community if they're not protected, by that kind of sound.
Yeah. And talking about getting ahead of ourselves, I mean, I feel like this AI thing, it's exponential growth. I feel like 3 years ago, you look back on AI's progress and all you see, is these you know, it was just as a joke. It was like this, you know, look what AI can generate. It'll be like a really crappy photo of like Will Smith eating spaghetti or something. And now you look at it now, and it's indistinguishable from real life. And it's a
Yeah.
little scary. It's like we opened Pandora's box, really.
Oh, 100%.
So, I mean, let's go back to the to work. So your use and at work. What do you think is the future of what's the impact on the job market with AI? What do you think? Is it going to create more jobs? Is it going to destroy the market? I mean, what's your opinion on
Yeah,
that?
no, that's a big question, and it's something that is affecting my generation in my class. It will affect future classes who go to college for a college degree to eventually work in the white collar industry, right? Whether it's as an engineer in business or sales, marketing, anything and everything white collar. There's concern over how AI is going to affect entry level jobs
Yeah.
because AI currently how it's used can like boost productivity, worker productivity.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that what used to take maybe potentially 3 workers is now just being done by one person. So they're getting overworked. I mean, they're more productive, but they're getting overworked. And so
Right.
then there's no need to hire 2 more people, right? So then when we say, will AI create jobs? It'll create specific niche jobs to build the data centers, to run the algorithms and ensure that the AI is running properly as it should, or training it. But when we're talking about the overall quantity of jobs, we're going to see a stark, decrease as
Yeah.
time goes on and as AI gets better.
Well, it was not like interns were getting paid anyways, but it's still very concerning for
Cause for concern, yeah.
cause
Yeah.
for concern. What do you think? Here's another buzzword I'm sure we all hear a lot. The AI bubble. I mean, can you give me your thoughts on that? What do you think? Is there AI bubble? Is this just another fear mongering word? Should we be concerned? What do you think on that?
So, full transparency, it's not one of the AI things or conversations that I'm heavily involved with.
Yeah.
It's not really something that I'm as concerned. The only reason I would be concerned is like kind of going back to anyone who remembers the 2008 housing market bubble crash. Basically, to sum it up for layman terms, when you put money into a certain niche like industry or market in like U.S. industries
Yeah.
overall, and you inflate that or you overevaluate it by putting in so much money and you don't get your return on investment, the people who put in the money, the governments who put in the money to build AI infrastructure and all that stuff, and if it isn't going to return
Yeah.
their investment, you're basically losing money. And what happens when you lose money? It affects the entire market. So it's like a domino effect.
Sure.
Whether or not there is one is kind of remains unseen. There is articles and stories coming out that businesses are struggling to find the value in AI.
Yeah.
Like they've invested all this money and everything, but
And it's like, from what I've seen,
Yeah.
at least online, it's like 5 major like AI companies that are constantly exchanging.
they're investing in each other.
Yeah.
It's a closed circular economy, which doesn't actually, it's not a free market, first of
Oh.
all, for my business people out there, but also it's a cost of concern because it's like if one falls, there's a chance that they all fall.
And the
So,
bubble pops, bursts, basically.
yeah. So really, how is that making our groceries any cheaper?
I don't know. Maybe we'll get AI cashiers. I mean, did you see that? It's kind of back to the job market thing. They're trying to replace fast food workers, trying to make it fully autonomous. But I don't think that would be AI.
Yeah.
It would be robot. Like,
Yeah, robotics. So yeah,
Robotics.
let's talk about that. There
Okay.
is a distinction to be made about AI and automation. They're not the same thing.
okay.
One can use the other, but automation has always been happening. Before like this buzzwords of AI been popping up like last year or 2 years ago, it's like automation has slowly already been happening throughout major manufacturing industries or major service industries. You're talking about fast food workers. That's a service industry. And we're going to see that. We're going to see more of that, unfortunately. And AI is only going to exasperate that and, just keep growing and growing, and then you'll see more automation happening across different industries, especially in white collar work, right?
Yeah.
So
What do you think the next 10 years will look like with AI? Do you think it's going to be more of like a Terminator type dystopian future, or maybe a utopian punk-esque where we work together with robots and AI? What do you envision the future to look like?
that wholly depends on where we go politically from here,
Sure.
right? And
Everything's political now.
no, everything is. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. It's how the world works through governments.
Yeah.
And in terms of like where I see the next 10 years going, AI is going to get better.
Yeah.
It's going to get better.
I mean, look at the
companies-
past 4 years.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to tell what's real and what's not. People are going to be confused. People already are. Even before AI, you had Photoshop,
Yeah.
you had deep fakes, you had even just regular misinformation campaigns. Now it's just going to get 10 times, 100 times
Yeah.
worse because
And now you can create that like that.
just like that, you could create it at home.
Create it at home with one prompt.
There's a lot of regulation that needs to go in, and right now it's a wild west.
Yeah.
So if we don't rein in that, we're gonna just see a pure chaos, pure chaos. But there's a chance. There's a chance that we can control the power of AI. We could distribute the benefits evenly and equitably across society because it has the power to help solve really important questions in cancer research and scientific research
Yeah.
that could revolutionize entire industries.
Actually,
but right now it's just, hey, where should I go to eat right now? And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you should check out these.
It's
know?
more like it's not even being used usefully. I feel like most of the time it's just theatrics, or not theatrics, but used recreationally, right? That's the word.
Yeah.
Just look at what I can create, and it'll be like some brain rot. But yeah, I saw a statistic the other day, and it was kind of like put things in perspective about the usage of AI throughout the entire world globally, and it was something like only like 1 billion, right? Which is a lot of people, but only 1 billion have access to AI right now, and has
Mhm.
been using it,
Mhm.
effectively, I think. So it's kind of crazy that I feel like the rest of the world, or a majority of the world, still hasn't even like directly had like even played with AI. I feel like just kind of crazy to think about.
You're touching upon just like the general concept of like technological innovation.
Yeah.
It's like, unfortunately, there's going to be a large swaths of populations across the world are never going to see some of the beautiful technology that we've invented
Yeah.
and innovations we've done in healthcare and all across different industries. AI is going to be one of them. And that's where I go back to like the question before. It's like, we got to think about how we distribute the technology effectively, so.
Well, to wrap up real quick, how do you plan to get involved with AI? And if you are, do you think others should too stay in touch with it?
Yeah, 100%. We got to get people involved. Politics matters for a lot of reasons, but in terms of AI, for anyone going to college, you have to get involved. Locally is where you have the most power. At the state level is where you have the most power. And if you elect people that represent you well in government, you're going to get the bills that you're going to want passed. It's all about people power at the end of the day. It's all about getting involved in local, state level organizations and committees and all that good stuff at your towns, because you can have an effect and an influence on whether or not a data center is being built behind your backyard, and you can have an effect on whether your state allows certain AI policies and all that good stuff. So,
Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for coming out here, and also for bringing me, since you were my ride here.
yeah, no problem. Anytime. Thank
And
you.
thank you for helping me become more openly mindful.
You're listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show here on YouTube and Torch TV Files Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. And back to the show.
What does Lucy Ricardo, the slapstick queen of I Love Lucy, have to do with the success of Star Trek? A lot, actually, because behind the sitcom icon was a studio executive at Desilu who greenlit a risky science fiction pilot And that decision didn't just launch a television show, it launched a franchise that would be canceled, rescued by fans, reborn in reruns, expanded into films, novels, conventions, games, and carried forward for nearly 60 years by the people who refused to let it disappear. This is Narratives on the Move. I'm Lillian Venskis, and today I'm tackling a franchise giant, Star Trek. Okay, so I'm going to kind of lay out my plan for this episode. The first thing I'm going to do is do a brief timeline of the TV shows and films. Then I'm going to touch on associated media and merchandise. Then I want to discuss why this franchise is important. And I want to look at where it is today. And then I'll end with my personal history. So Star Trek, in case anybody doesn't know, was a television series that debuted in 1966, and it was essentially a space western following the adventures of Captain James T. Kirk and his diverse crew on a mission to explore strange new worlds. It was an ambitious and progressive, featuring one of television's first multiracial casts and using sci-fi as an allegory for 1960s social issues. So the series only lasts 3 years. It ends in 1969. And it takes about 10 years before Hollywood catches up and releases the first film. So in 1979, the first of 6 films is released, and they all feature the characters and the cast of the original series. So those movies come out from 1979 to 1991. At the same time, starting in the mid-'80s, the TV universe starts to expand. So in 1987, we get Star Trek: The Next Generation. This television show is in the same universe as the original series, and it's about 100 years in the future. Then we get Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. All of these series are in the same universe as the original show. Deep Space Nine and Voyager are direct spin-offs from The Next Generation. Then in 2001, we get the first, I guess you could say, change in chronology, because we get a prequel titled Enterprise. Enterprise lasts about 4 seasons. So that ends in 2005. The other thing that's going on while these TV shows are being produced and aired is there are 4 films that drop between 94 and 2002 that revolve around the crew from the Next Generation television series. So that's it for these major television shows and films in the time period before this major split that happens in the company that owned Star Trek. So I'm going to get into that in a minute, but I want to mention that it's not just television shows and films that are happening at this point. There are tons of media and merchandise that come out around this franchise. By 1967, we already have novels and comic books coming out, and it's quickly followed by every type of game you can imagine, from tabletop games to card games to battle simulation games, and then, of course, eventually all types of video games happen. There's also a series of story records that come out in the 70s, in the mid-70s, where it was essentially original stories on long-form audio that came with comic books. So it was essentially read-along books for children. And then, of course, there's every type of merchandise you can imagine, as far as, lunchboxes and clothes and toys and all that good stuff. All right, so then what happens in 2006, the company that owned the rights to Star Trek, Viacom, splits. And CBS Corporation gets the rights to the television library and the rights to produce new television shows and consumer products, while Paramount, under the new Viacom company, owned the rights to the first 10 feature films and the right to produce new films. So this split lasts until they reunite in 2019. But during this split period, Paramount decides that they're going to reboot Star Trek. So in 2009, they come out with the first of a trilogy of films titled so originally, Star Trek 2009. The narrative of this film revolves around a Romulan crew that travels back in time and accidentally creates an alternate reality when they destroy the USS Kelvin. So this series of films is referred to as the Kelvin timeline because it is not in the same universe as the original set of films and television shows, right? But to connect the original universe to the Kelvin timeline, the character of Spock from the original show, who was played by the original actor Leonard Nimoy, also travels back in time, and he explains this time split to a young James T. Kirk. The trilogy then proceeds to follow this younger crew on new adventures in that alternate timeline. So this reboot is actually a parallel universe instead of a replacement. So in short, it's the same characters, a different timeline, and Spock connects the old and new universes. Now, I think this was really brilliant on the part of the creators of Star Trek because it honors the 40 years of lore and tradition and all of the shows and storylines that we all love, but it allowed them to now tell this totally new story. So we have this set of films, this trilogy of films. And so that's where we land before, say, the era of streaming, okay? So I want to pause at this point, and I want to kind of discuss why I chose to talk about this franchise, in the first place, and the most important aspect of the franchise, in my opinion, is the fans. So I want to go all the way back to 1967 when the original series was in the middle of season 2. By this point, by season 2, there are already multiple fanzines being produced by fans. Actors from the television series and the creator Gene Roddenberry frequently interacted with these fans. For example, Leonard Nimoy provided a biography of his character, Mr. Spock, for the fanzine Spockanalia. Another fanzine, The Concordiance, which was essentially a compendium of episode recaps, character backstories, technology, and lore from the original series, was first published as a fan product. But in 1976, it actually gets a mass market paperback publication by Ballantine Books. And interestingly, this book, The Concordiance, was used by writers to help maintain story canon and continuity. I mean, that's just the importance of fans at that point to me is staggering, right? And now there's another major contribution that happens, and this ties directly into something like San Diego Comic-Con. By 1972, fans were holding major conventions, and in 1972, that convention was in New York City. And these fan conventions for Star Trek continue to this day. So San Diego Comic-Con essentially owes its existence to Star Trek fans. There's also another important part with fandom is how it actually directly affected the content of one of the television shows. So when The Next Generation comes out, which was the first series to come out since the original, so this was a very big deal, fans really wanted a Klingon character. So the writers created this character of Worf. Worf is not in the first couple of episodes of The Next Generation. He was added later because fans desired a Klingon character who was a recurring character in the show. So that's just another example of how the fandom of this franchise is so important to the actual narrative stories that end up being told. So the activity of these fans kept the interest in the show long enough for something like Hollywood to take notice, to make those first set of films, right? So if you look at the overall broad strokes of what was happening with the television show, it ends in 1969. There's merchandise coming out and there's other associated media, but nothing happens, major until 1979. Those 10 years, the interest stayed because of fan work, because of the conventions that they were doing and how they were interacting with each other. And that's why Hollywood was able to take a chance on rebooting this series that had been sitting there for 10 years, right? So now we're going to jump into this modern streaming era, right? So when we move into the era, we're talking all about these television shows that are only taking place in that prime timeline. The Kelvin timeline is now dead. So at this point, we get this stage that is called the Something for Everyone stage. So Paramount Plus is the streaming platform where all of this happens on, and we get the show Picard, which is essentially a character study of a legacy character from the next generation. We get a television show called Discovery, which was a darker show, and it's more serialized in format, where most of the other shows were more episodic in nature. Discovery is serialized. We also then get Strange New Worlds, which is a direct spin-off of Discovery, but it goes back to episodic in nature, and it's more optimistic and lighthearted in tone. We get a television movie called Section 31, which is essentially about one of the side characters from Discovery. And they also put out 2 animated television shows. One is called Lower Decks, and that is more of the Adult Swim style, geared towards adults. And then Star Trek Prodigy, which is geared towards children. And now we have this newest one, Starfleet Academy. So Star Trek Starfleet Academy is a television show. I'm not familiar with that one yet. So that's where we are now. We have Discovery is ending. This is the last season of Discovery. But essentially we have 5 shows that are still out there. So I wanted to discuss quickly my personal history with the show. So I started watching this show in the late 70s and early 80s when it was showing as reruns during like the dinner hour, and I would be watching it with my dad and my brother. They were the other big fans of the show. And during that time, of course, as a child, I remember I bought one of those story albums at a garage sale, probably because my brother was a huge fan and he was my big brother and I idolized him. So I bought this record, and I'll never forget the story in it because the story revolves around the crew finding a race of beings that are composed entirely of sound. And I thought that it was so clever that an audio-only story, it revolves around a race of beings that is only sound. So what was interesting, if you think about it, this was an original story for these albums. If they tried to make that a television show, they probably would have had to figure out a way to visually represent this race of beings. Because it was a album, they didn't have to do that. And then I watched Next Generation. It's my favorite, probably because of the character of Wesley Crusher, because we're roughly the same age when that show was airing. And then I went on to watch Enterprise when that came out, and Picard and Discovery. Right now I'm at the point where I'm catching up on Discovery because I'm desperate to watch Starfleet Academy and Strange New Worlds because they look really, really fun. But I have to catch up. I never really did any of the games except that my first Apple phone that I had, my first iPhone, one of the first apps I bought was the app that was the phaser. So I could set it to stun people who were my enemies. All right, so I think that's about it for my history with this franchise. So I just want to close quickly by pointing out that, Star Trek as a franchise survived cancellation, media transitions, cast changes, corporate splits, timeline branches, and streaming fragmentation. And it survives because fans wrote letters, created conventions, bought novels, comics, games, all sorts of merch. They debated canon. They passed it down through the generations. I just want to leave you with this. Star Trek didn't endure because it was preserved. It endured because it was reimagined. So next time, we're going to go from this optimistic utopian space western to a dystopian techno-noir. I'm going to trade the Prime Directive for corporate overlords as we dive into the franchise of cyberpunk and its sprawling transmedia world. So from Starfleet Academy to Street Samurai, polish your communicator, charge your neural implants, and try not to get hacked before then. Thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first full episode of Gift for Gab, a podcast all about filling you in on characters and concepts from comic book canon that you should give a shot at reading about. It's Nate Enriquez on the mic, happy to be talking with you guys. Now, Today's episode is all about the unstoppable Juggernaut, aka Kane Marco, a longtime villain and on and off ally to the X-Men. Nowadays, Juggernaut is on the current X-Men team along with all the favorites like Cyclops, Magic, Beast, and more. That obviously wasn't how things were, though, as he started out as one of the X-Men's most prominent villains, and his origins are actually a lot more complicated than many fans are aware of, so I just want to get right into it and talk about it. Now, Kane's origins stem all the way back to May 4th, 1965, where he debuted as the feature villain in X-Men 12. Yes, that's the 12th X-Men comic ever, where it's revealed that he's the stepbrother of none other than Charles Xavier, or as many other people know him as, Professor X. Charles, or Professor X, goes on a long monologue explaining Kane's backstory and how Kane's abusive father, Kurt Marco, married Charles's mother, Sharon Xavier, after Charles's dad passed away in an accident during a science experiment. Hint, hint, that Kurt Marco was also a part of. Kane and Charles were both treated really poorly by Kane's father, but Kane had it the worst because Charles was just naturally more successful than him, just due to him being smarter and also because of his emerging telepathic abilities. So he'd actually have like an advantage over Kane without him even really knowing. And so Kane's abuse led to him taking it out on Charles. And that pretty much made them enemies for as long as they were together until the death of Kurt after a confrontation between him and the two boys. And there was this huge fire, this huge chemicals. In his last act, he actually decided not to be a terrible father. He dragged both of them out of the fire. But in doing so, he told Charles to not let Kane know about his gift, which inadvertently let Kane know about Charles's gift in his telepathy. But Kane's story reaches its like crescendo, quote unquote, after him and Charles both reach adulthood, where they both find themselves serving in the Korean War because, you know, these comics were made basically around the time that it was actually happening. So they're both under heavy fire. Things are looking dire. They're not looking great. And so Kane up and deserts the battlefield. That makes Charles follow him because that's his brother and he wants to make sure he's not just running off. So he goes to stop him, and they reach this ancient temple with a crimson gem standing on a pedestal, very, very grandiose. And Kane grabs the gem, kind of foolishly. He grabs the gem because he's kind of greedy by nature in the time of them writing this. He grabs it, and that causes him to turn into who we all know right now, the unstoppable Juggernaut. And right after that, the temple collapses on top of him. Charles manages to escape, but in doing so, he basically leaves Kane under all that rubble, assuming him dead. I mean, this leads me right into the misconceptions people have about Juggernaut. I mean, for one, a lot of people just assume he's a mutant, and that's not true, because, you know, I just explained his backstory. He's actually powered by the magic via that crimson gem I was talking about, which has a very long name, the Crimson Gem of Sidorak. Now, Sidorak, that's an entirely different character in himself. He's much higher on the cosmic scale than Juggernaut, and he's very complicated. He's a part of this group called the Octessence. It's a whole thing. I'll leave that part about his character for you to read up on if you actually find yourself interested in Juggernaut's history beyond what I'm going to be talking about in this podcast. So I'll leave that for you guys. Even if you really don't know about the history of the character in detail, a lot of people are at least somewhat familiar with Juggernaut. He's the star villain in one of the most popular Spider-Man comics of all time. He's been in a ton of Marvel video games, so much media beyond just the comics. He's all over the place. Even in the comics, he's all over the place. He trades blows with people like Hulk, Thor, Wolverine, Spider-Man, all the favorites. But people don't really know his power set beyond the basics. So, like, how does he manage to fight these powerhouses like Hulk and not just get immediately pulverized like many others do? Well, his empowerment from the gem gives him basic powers, admittedly, but it's just at the tippy top of the scale, at the highest scale you can imagine. So he has super strength, and that allows him to go blow for blow with Hulk, nigh invulnerability, so he really can't take any meaningful damage. And even if he does, he has a healing factor that's stronger than Wolverine's and Deadpool's because of that magic. He doesn't really age either for the same reason, and also for the same reason, he doesn't need to eat or sleep. And most famously, that magic gives him his signature power, his infinite momentum, which, simply put, once Juggernaut starts moving, pretty much nothing can stop him except himself. It takes cosmic levels of power to be able to challenge him once he starts going, let alone fully stopping him outright. And not only do his powers make him formidable, but his armor, more importantly, that gigantic helmet on his head, also protects him from psychic attacks, which is one of his huge weaknesses that the X-Men take advantage of when they fight him. But the problem with that is only something like Wolverine's adamantium claws have enough power and leverage to like really get under there in order to like dislodge the helmet from his head. Otherwise, it's pretty much impossible to do any lasting damage to him unless you're somebody like Hulk or Doctor Strange. But even then, it's usually a stalemate between him and the Hulk, and he has some natural resistance to magic due to the gem powering him being magical in nature and coming from Sidorak, who's way stronger than Doctor Strange. So you have this guy, Kane Marco Juggernaut, who's this incredibly powerful individual with what's actually a pretty tragic backstory. And he has all this built-up hatred for his brother, Professor X, who's always been better than him, and this trauma from having a terrible and abusive father. And then he suddenly gains this awesome power, which is now sort of his way of never getting hurt again and finally being better than his brother. And his brother pretty much left him for dead in Korea. So that's when he comes stomping down to the mansion to confront his brother in X-Men 12 and so on and so forth, where his backstory leads to plenty of fights between him and Charles. And the X-Men really get caught in the crossfire between this feud more than him attacking the X-Men directly, since Juggernaut's more after his brother than anything else in most of those stories. But Juggernaut, being a character made to hold grudges and wreak havoc, he doesn't really care about collateral damage if it comes to being able to get a hold of his brother. But, as comics have progressed and different writers have gotten a hold of Juggernaut and the X-Men, his character has evolved a lot. And I don't think people really know how complicated his character is and how complex he really is because he's depicted, I mean, rightfully so, of course, as a brute because that's what he is on the surface level, a gigantic, unstoppable force. And he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, grabbing random gems in the middle of the Korean War and ancient dilapidated temples. I mean, it's not the smartest thing to do. I will be the first to admit it as somebody whose favorite character is Juggernaut in Marvel. But he's evolved from that, I would like to say. He started out as a villain, and then he's grown over time into this sort of begrudging ally to the X-Men, and then going back to a villain, and then going back to an ally, flip-flop, flip-flop. And now in the modern comics, the ones coming out right now, he's just fully on the X-Men with a brand new suit of armor with a huge red X on his helmet, which looks awesome, may I say. He did have a stint or two before where he was on the X-Men, but that didn't last forever. But now I think he's just fully committed to the X-Men and being a better person than what he used to be. And, a lot of that has to do with Sidorak's influence because what Sidorak wanted Juggernaut to do, essentially, is to cause as much destruction as possible and chaos and disruption in his name to basically make people afraid of him so he could grow more powerful. And there's this whole lore reason for that, and there's other demon gods like him that want to be known as well, but like I said earlier, that's a whole different thing, and I'm not going to get into it this episode. It's really up to you to learn more about that. But Sidorak basically fed off Kane's insecurities and his shortcomings and his doubts. He took advantage of that, and in doing so, he kind of made Kane out to be the perfect villain, or the perfect soldier, or the Avatar in this case. Not extremely intelligent, right? But he would do whatever Sidorak told him to do. But now modern day Juggernaut, he kind of distanced himself from that. He has multiple comics where he attempts to get out from under Sidorak's thumb. And that brings me to one of my favorite arcs of his, actually. Maybe not other fans' favorite X-Men run, but it comes from the infamous Chuck Austin X-Men run. It's notorious for being poorly executed and generally not very good, but Juggernaut is a hidden gem within this otherwise universally disliked run. Pun fully intended. Juggernaut undergoes his first real redemption arc, where after losing a large portion of his powers, he joins the X-Men. And as he rolls with the X-Men, basically, he befriends a young mutant named Samuel Pare, a.k.a. Squid Boy. Squid Boy was bullied relentlessly by his peers and was only saved from the torment and the potential deadly consequences that were going to come from the bullying from Professor X, choosing to enroll in the Xavier Institute rather than retaliate against his bullies. Kane befriended young Sammy, and basically as they're going along, they become good friends just by being in contact with each other and going on missions. But when Sammy's mother finds out about his friendship with, a known felon, aka the Juggernaut, she calls upon this Canadian superhero team, Alpha Flight, to bring him back home. So Sammy goes back home, but Kane is not deterred, having a hunch that Sammy was a victim to an abusive family because, you know, he came from one himself. Kane visits his house. So when he sees Sammy, he's covered in bruises. And you put someone like Kane in a situation that hits incredibly close to home for him when you consider his own childhood. He gets a hold of Sammy's dad and essentially beats the absolute brakes off of him. And that's when the same team from before, Alpha Flight, descends upon the scene and a huge brawl ensues between them and the unstoppable Juggernaut. And, you know, despite the way Kane went about it, it was a huge turnaround to see someone like him act selflessly for the sake of a friend, because he saw a reflection of his own life in Sammy's and would never want someone else to go through what he went through. And I think that's a testament that even though people don't like that run, Juggernaut's character development is absolutely remarkable in that run. And even if you don't like the run itself, I do highly recommend seeing if you can nitpick the parts with Juggernaut in them and give those a read, because I think they're worth reading. And this circles right back to how Kane's gradually removed himself from Sidorak's influence. In the 2020 Juggernaut miniseries by Fabian Nicieza, Juggernaut's signature writer, which is amazing and I highly recommend you read, by the way, he forced Sidorak basically out of the equation, because the way his powers work is that Sidorak was able to take or give him power depending on how good of a job he was doing, causing destruction and mayhem. So basically, Kane decided that he wanted to be a better person. But you know, whenever he would do that previously, he would pretty much lose all his powers and become considerably less of a threat. And that's really hard for a guy like Kane to give up, a guy with deep-seated insecurities and trauma when it comes to being vulnerable and weak, because his powers were a defense mechanism against that. So it was tough for him to give that up for the sake of being good. So in the 2020 run, when Kane found a way to rid himself of that, it helped him finally make that final leap into being a hero for good. Now, he's not as powerful as he used to be, because, you know, it's not going to be sunshine and daisies with him getting his powers from a loophole rather than getting the power directly from that gigantic demon god in another dimension. But he still has his powers in the current comics, and he's still able to wreak havoc just for a good cause now. I think it's just great to see him as a hero now. I think it's a great example of consistent character development for him. For somebody that's been a vengeful villain for so long, that's caused so much destruction, for somebody that's probably been banned from like 80% of the businesses in New York and Marvel for all the destruction he's caused, for him to really turn full circle, not only as a hero, but as a hero eating mutants who have been, you know, oppressed and persecuted for as long as Marvel history's had them, I think it's incredible. And I think it's what needed to happen for the character. And, you know, villain Juggernaut is so cool, right? I love that. I love Juggernaut in general, hero or villain. But for him to be a hero now, and for him to be the sort of guy trying to redeem himself, to aid mutant kind instead of oppose it, and, you know, not burying the hatchet with his brother, but more saying like, hey, my bad. You know, it's not your fault that my dad was this terrible guy and treated both of us so terribly. It shows the writers, especially Fabian, and I'll give Chuck Austin credit, Chuck Austin, and Marvel editorial in general, doing a good job and staying consistent with his growth and really pushing to make him a complete character. And as somebody that, you know, Juggernaut's my favorite character in Marvel, I really appreciate that as a fan. And I think that's a big part about why I'm making this episode about him, because I think he's a character worth learning about. He's tied to so many characters, I can go down the list. Like Doctor Strange, he has a spell called the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. He takes that spell from the same dimension that King gets his powers from. It's a whole thing. And then, you know, he's fought Thor countless times and Hulk. He's tied to so many characters. And he's connected to the mutants and the X-Men and Charles Xavier. He fights Thor, he fights Hulk. He's in all these amazing comics. And in his tenure as a villain, he was sort of the perfect villain for a hero to overcome, because he was this gigantic, unstoppable force. But one of the redeeming qualities of a hero is to be able to think on your feet. So it shows that most of the time, unless you're like Hulk, you're not going to be able to beat this guy in a straight up fight. So it's up to you as a hero to think of another way to take down an otherwise unstoppable force. And I think that it just serves as a great villain. And now as a hero, they did the smart thing. They made him a hero and they took away some of that power. So he's not as insanely strong as he used to be, but he's still this gigantic powerhouse, you know, bulldozing through walls, taking names, and he's doing it for a good cause. And I think that's so amazing for his character as a whole, and is a testament to his growth since May of 1965 as being kind of a dumb brute for the X-Men to overcome. And that's about all the time I have to talk about Juggernaut today. But I hope you guys enjoyed me ranting about my favorite character and telling you why I think you should read up on him. And you know what? I think you should read up on him, because especially now, he has comics coming out right now, and he's a big part of them in the X-Men. So, you know, that's all from me. This has been A Gift for Gab. I'm Nate Henriquez, and thanks for listening.
The podcast show here on Bergen Bulldog Radio was engineered and edited by Jordan Burrell and Nick Gonzalez. Our Bulldog mascot is Jameson. The next episodes will air beginning Friday, March 6th, 2026. The executive producer of Bergen Bulldog Radio is Professor Robert Williams. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time on Bergen Bulldog Radio.